An experience from Gilmer. Gosh, I love that place. I remember because I started. That was where I finished my mission, and so I'd started in the city and everything. And Dallas, that's your corporate headquarters. I mean, you have AT&T, Chase, um, Bank of America, so many just national companies that are originated there. And then you just hike your way out about 3 hours to East Texas, out in Gilmer, and life is a completely different. It's a completely different speed because you have this back and forth. I mean, they call it the spaghetti bowl in Dallas because it's all these freeways that just go all over each other. And so, I mean, life is 100 miles an hour out there. But when we're showing up in Gilmer, you have this two-way road. You have the 154, and then you have the 155 that cuts through, and then maybe another one is called the 271. And so you have these three roads are kind of the main intersection. And I mean, just a few lanes on each of them. People are just kind of going at their own speed. Everything just lays back. And I just remember as I showed up, you could feel it. And I'd always wanted to live in the country. I mean, I love the whole country music, the whole feel with that. And so I thought it would be cool to live in a small town. And there's about, I mean, in Dallas, you have over 1 million people. In Gilmer, it was about 4,000 in the city. And so it was a completely different pace of life. And the whole feeling there, it's just, I remember to some extent, since we were Mormon missionaries, um, there was a really big Baptist, a reborn presence there. And so a lot of people weren't as friendly to us, but for the most part, I mean, missionaries are kind of always treated that way. But we were treated great out in Gilmer just because it was a different pace of life. People just love that you care about them. The fact that as a missionary, you're interested in their well-being, just as long as you don't come off as this Bible basher that you're just trying to convince them that they're wrong. Just as long as you can show them that you love them and that you want what's best for them. I mean, everyone just loves you there. And it was such a great experience. Just a normal day. I remember we had a car in our mission, or in that area, because we covered, again, it was hours of area, just hours. And so, we'd wake up, and it was really cool. One of the members of the bishopric, they owned this one gym that we'd go use just to go work out, get some exercise in. And another cool thing is, I feel like in my mission, in the city, you were kind of separated from members, but since it was such a small town, you saw everyone everywhere. And so our stake president, he would come to work out with us, President Austin. I really loved it. We got to be really close with him. And since we were so far away from the mission office, I mean, we had pretty good contact with our mission president, with a lot of missionaries, but it was kind of like he was our mission president. He would check in on us, see how the work is going. We'd tell him how elders around the zone are doing, and what's going on here and there, and we'd talk about whatever was good, and whatever was going on, whatever needed his attention, and so it was kind of like we had a daily stake president meeting, and then we'd move on from there. We'd get our studies done, and we would, and then we just go from there depending on what the needs of the area were. I mean, there were a lot of people since it was in East Texas, and there were only 4,000 people. It wasn't like there was a super outstanding Spanish presence there, but we still found it's kind of in Hispanic culture. I mean, where one lives, that's kind of where they all live, and so we'd find these different pockets, and we'd go knock on different areas there. And I remember, since I was there for so long, we found ways that we were really creative to find Spanish people. And I mean, that for some Spanish missions, you may see that in the state side as a little bit of a problem, is finding Spanish people, because we're only supposed to speak Spanish in some Spanish areas, and our stake president wanted to really push the Spanish movement. And so, I mean, we found we'd use the United States Census, and we'd look up, they have different demographic regions, so we'd look up to see where different Hispanics live. And I mean, I heard there were some elders that recently they just used this phone book, and they looked up names. They looked up like Martinez, and looked up different addresses, and they just go there. And so we'd go search for different Hispanics. There was a great member influence there, since it was where the church started. And so, I mean, in the town of 4,000, you had a stake central. We had a pretty good presence, and so a lot of people working with members was a really big deal there. And so we were able to work with members, and a big deal in our mission was also making lists where instead of just going and asking people for referrals, it's kind of a used up, beat out way to get referrals. What we do is we just ask them, we'd be like, hey, so just name everyone you know that's a non-member. We don't need their addresses or their phone numbers or anything. And we'd make a lot of meetings with members, and we just get these hundreds of names, because a lot of members, they'll just be like, well, a lot of people that we deal with are Mormon, and so we don't really know that many people. And so a big deal for us was just proving that they did know a lot of people that weren't members. And so we just have them jot down these lists of names. I mean, be it from Facebook or from, their phone, could have lived anywhere, but we just found different ways to uncover non-members that they knew. And that's how we get in contact with a lot of people. And so that was a lot of what we did. Was we would be using members, we would be looking for Hispanics, looking for other non-members. I love tracking. I know a lot of missionaries didn't, but I thought it was a cool way to find. But we did a lot of that, and we'd normally have a pretty decent amount of appointments set up already. So our time from 3 until 9, which is when we're supposed to be back and getting ready for bed, we had that pretty booked with appointments for a good amount of the time. And so that was another one of the things, was we were able to just get our chemistry down with members and non-members there, and getting to know people. And so it was, and another big deal was, since I was there for so long, it's such a small town, it's like you get to know everyone, and so you get to know your way around. And there's 3 wards in the city, and so you get to know your way around these different members and their friends, and that was just kind of the way that we would pick people we wanted to teach, see how they were going from there. Of course, a lot of checking up to see how things are going around the zone in Oklahoma and Arkansas. But it was one of the highlights of my mission. If I were to describe my mission, I remember my ward mission leader asked me there, and we went back for a sealing maybe a couple weeks ago. And he was like, so how would you describe your mission? I'm trying to fire up our missionaries that we have now. I was like, well, I mean, Gilmer, that was my mission. It's really what it was for a good part of it. So that was some of the things that I really enjoyed there.